Taf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph will begin Lamed Amud Beis, 7 lines from the bottom with the 2 dots. Ulakain b'beis pras, and you can make an erev for a kain in a beis pras. A beis pras again is a field where a kever was plowed, and there's a chashash that the bones were scattered about. So therefore, going into the field, a kain might come into contact with a small bone fragment. So therefore, the Rabbanan asr going into beis pras. As Taisa speaks out that midaraisa, it's not a concern because normally the plow wouldn't dig that deep, and we wouldn't be concerned that the bones got crushed and got scattered about. But the Rabbanan are geyser, it's a chashash. So, kind of beis pras. Now, according to Simchus, who says that the Erev has to be actually for the person making the Erev, he has to be able to eat it. It has to be edible to him. So a kohen, it's also him to go into the beis pras. So how can he therefore have access to the Erev according to Simchus? Why is it a valid Erev? Gemara says, answers, the Omer of Yehuda, Omer Shmuel, menapeh hadam beis pras v'oilach. Since it's only an issue of the Rabbanan were matir by bending down and blowing in front of them, and therefore any of the bone fragments would be exposed, and therefore he would be able to avoid it. So that's an eitzah whereby he can go into the beis pras. Their only concern over here is bone fragments, so therefore there's no too much oil over here. It's only coming into contact with him if he walks through and bends down and examines and blows the ground in front of him. If there are any bones, he'll see it, and if not, then we don't have a chashash. Rabbi Yehuda Barami Mishmei is Rabbi Yehuda Amar beis pras shenidash tor. He says a beis pras that was trampled on is tor, because since people walked through it, they trampled on. If there were any bone fragments, they would have been crushed, and they would have been smaller than the shear. They would become smaller than the shear that would be metame. It would be smaller than a sair. So therefore, we don't have to be concerned if it was a beis pras that was nidish, that was trampled on. Rabbi Yehuda Omer a beis hakvara is Rabbi Yehuda says that you can even make an eruv in a beis hakvaras, even in a beis hakvaras. So what's the pshat? If we're going according to Simchus, so how can he be matir in a beis hakvaras? The eruv is not accessible, and the kohen can't go into a beis hakvaras. You don't have the eitzah that you had by the beis pras. So how is the erev accessible, and how therefore could it be mutter? So more answers. There's an eitzah. There's an eitzah that you can come into the beis hakvaras with the shira teva migdal. If you have a large container, a large box, a large container that holds 40 saw or more, that container is not makabel tumah. So it itself is not makabel tumah. So if the kayan is in the sheda tiva migdal, then he will be protected, he'll be insulated from the tumah. So he can go into it, and even though it passes through the beis hakvaras, but it's a chatzitza. He's insulated in the sheda tiva migdal, in the container, and therefore the tumah does not penetrate it, does not affect them, be torn. Kasavar oil zorok shmei oil. He holds, Rav Yehuda holds, and an oil zorok is shmei oil. Now we know an oil is a chatzitza. So if you have a mess under one roof, what's on top of the roof, if you have it in a house, what's on top of the roof is tor, because the oil is a chatzitza, it protects it. And over here, it's an oil zork because it's moving. It's transporting the kayan through the beis hakvaras, so it's moving. It's zork. It's literally thrown. He holds, nevertheless, that's also called an oil, and it insulates the kayan and protects him from the tumah. And the machlekes that we have over here in our Mishnah, whether you can go, the kayan can make the erev in the beis hakvaras or not, is based on the following machlekes. So as Rashi speaks out over here, meaning that in our Mishnah, both the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda hold, like Simchus, that the erev has to be accessible. The person making the erev has to be able to eat it. The Rabbanan say it's not an erev. Why is that? Because the kohen can't go in. And they hold an oil zorek is loishmei. So you don't have this eitzah, because an oil zorek is loishmei oil. Rav Yehuda holds like simples, but he holds you have this eitzah. It is accessible because oil zorek shmei oil. Like we find the machlekes in the brisa. Hanichnas l'eretz ha'amim. Rabbanim were going to tumah on eretz ha'amim, on chutz la'aretz, because over there we don't know where the mason were buried. There could be a mason all over, and even in a place that you don't know to be as a basic forest, or to have a kever, or to have ansamas, they were going to tumah. So the Bryce says, if one goes into it, in an enclosure, in a migdal, in a carriage, a crater, a closet, Rebbe says, Matama, Rabbi Yehuda, Matire. And he says it's Torah. So, but my kamiflagi, what's the machlek is Marasavar oil zorek shmei oil, and one holds that an oil zorek that he holds it's considered an oil. So Marasavar oil zorek lav shmei oil. Rather, the Rebbe holds that an oil zorek is not considered an oil. It doesn't insulate him. That's why Rebbe's mitama Marasavar oil zorek shmei oil. And Rabbi Yehuda holds an oil zorek shmei oil, so it insulates and protects him. So that's machlekes, and that's machlekes in our Mishnah whether the erev is valid. The same we learned in another brayso of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ma'arvin l'kain tohar b'truma tohar b'kever." You can be ma'arv for a kohen who's tor b'truma tohar and a kever. Now, a kohen who's tomei, he can't eat truma, so he can't eat truma, and therefore you can't make an erev for him with truma. A kohen who is tohar, he can't eat truma which is tmeya. Nobody can eat truma which is tmeya. But ma'arvin l'kain tohar, if the kohen is tohar, be it truma tahira, then it's a valid erev, and even in a kever. Now, this is not talking in a basic forest, as Rashi and Tosfos speak out. It's talking about in a kever. So, how can he go and how can he eat the truma? So again, we're going that it's going to sumchas. You have to be able to eat it. With the shevet migdal, it insulates him. But for the Gemara, but if the truma is on the kever, well, then the truma will become tomei. Once you put it down onto the kever, it becomes tomei. Now, if the truma becomes tomei, nobody can eat it. So how can it be a good erev? The more answers, we're talking if the truma was fruit. So it's talking where it was not huksher. In order for fruit to become tomei, after it's picked, it has to come into contact with the 7 liquids. So we're talking over here where it never came into contact with the liquid after it was picked, and therefore it's not going to become tomei. It's like huksher lekabel tuma, or shenilusha b'mei pears. Or alternatively, we can be talking about a cake that was kneaded with not one of the 7 liquids. It was kneaded with mei pears. So again, it's like huksher lekabel tuma, so it's not going to become tomei. But how can the kohen bring the truma to him? Now, over here we don't have the concern how can he come close to the kever, because it's not talking about a basic forest. So it means that he comes close to the kever, but he still has to bring the truma to him to be able to eat it. So how can he bring it to him? More answers, but pshutik lietz. He brings it with a pshutik lietz. He takes a flat wooden kli. A flat wooden kli is not makabel tuma. And then he reaches over and he brings it with him, and he brings it with him towards him, and he brings it to him. So he's not mahil over the mess. He's not mahil. He takes a stick or a kli, a board, or fork, and he brings it to him. So it's b'shuta kli it's lo makabel tuma. Frag the Gemara, well, what do you mean? How does that help you? The pshuta kli'etz in itself will become an oil. Now, if he reaches over to the kever, and he reaches over, now even if he puts the board further, and he's holding it, and the board is reaching over to the kever, and he's not being mal over the kever, but the board itself should be an oil. And therefore, that should bring the truma all the way across to where he's holding it. And therefore, he should become Tomei. And if he becomes Tomei, then he can't eat the truma. It's not going to be a good error. More answers, the Maisle Achure, or different gear says Achude. Meaning, when he takes it from the narrow part of it, it doesn't have a tafach, and therefore it's not Pesach tafach, it's not an oil. So it does not bring the Tumah towards him. My time is the Rabbanon of that. So what's the reason for the Rabbanon? Why did the Rabbanon argue in Rabbi Yehuda? Bishlam in our Mishnah, is talking about a basic forest. So if it's talking about a basic forest, we understand that the Rabbanan argue because they hold oil zorak, loishmei oil. But over here, we're talking about a kever. So why would they argue over here? Why don't you have this eitzah? He can just lean forward, take a stick, or board rather, and bring the tumah, and which does not have a peseach, take the board or stick that doesn't have a peseach tefach, and bring the truma to him. And could be talking about truma that's not hoshlikabel tumah. So why would the Rabbanan argue in the case of the Brisa? Kasavar also liknes bayis b'surahano for a different reason. A kever is also hano. We learn out from Miriam, the kever of Miriam to Sham to Egla Rufa, that it's also bahana. If you're placing the erev on a kever, you're getting hana from the kever, and it's also to get hana from a grain, from a kever. Michlal Rav Yehuda Savra Mutter. So then why does Rav Yehuda hold it is a valid erev? Does he hold that it's mutter to get hana from a kever? The man says no. He holds that it's also as well. It's also to get hana from a kever. But he holds that this is a mitzvah. The erev is a mitzvah, so it's not considered that you're getting personal hana. Therefore, it's mutter. Rava said that well, doesn't that necessarily mean that this is a machlekes, that Rabbi Yehuda says mitzvahs lav lahanesu, but Rabbanan hold that it's mutter apparently? So did Rava say his memra according to Dafka Rabbi Yehuda? Rava says no. If you would hold that you can only make an error for dvar mitzvah, the kuliya alma mitzvahs lav lahanesu, everyone would agree that in this case it's not a valid eruv because mitzvahs. Everyone would agree that it is a valid eruv rather because mitzvahs lav lahanesu, and it's for a mitzvah. It's not considered getting hana from the kever. But what's the machlekes over here? Amar savar ein marvin al dvar mitzvah. The machlekes gufa is, can you make the erev? One holds only the dvar mitzvah, but Amar savar marvin afil dvar rishos. Rabbi Yehuda says you can only make an erev dvar mitzvah. Now, therefore, whatever benefit I know you're getting from the putting on the erev on the kever, it's not considered a personal benefit because it's only for the dvar mitzvah. We don't say that you're getting a hana from Yisrael hana, mitzvahs lav lahanesu. But the Rabbanan hold it's mutter to make an erev even shaloi l'dvar mitzvah, and therefore in this case it's also because you're getting a personal hana. Well, Rav Yosef said you can only make an error for dvar mitzvah. According to him, let's say that he said this memra, it's machlokes tanoim, because that seems to be good for the machlokes over here, and let us say that he does not come out according to the Rabbanan. Rav Yosef would say no. Rav Yosef the kuli alma ein mevar ben el dvar mitzvah. He says this memra, his memra, everyone agrees to. Everyone agrees that ein marmel dvar mitzvah, ola kuli alma mitzvahs lav lahanesu, and everyone also holds that mitzvahs lav lahanesu. So what's the machlekes according to him? Hakam iflagi mar samra came in the konale eruv loy nichal elementary. Rabbi Yehuda holds it's not considered any hana over here. You're not considered getting any hana because the only benefit you're getting is the kinyan of the erev. Now, ein marvin al dvar mitzvah, And Mrs. Lavlahenis, so the Lavlahenis nitnu, so the acquisition, the kinyan of the Erev is not called a hana. So there's no Isser over, there's no Isser hana. Now, once you've been kind of the Erev, he holds that the person doesn't care about it anymore. So the fact that it remains there on the grave after the kinyan of the Erev, he doesn't care about that. There's no personal hana. But Umar, some of the Rabbanan hold, Nichale Dementary. But the Rabbanan hold says, aside from the fact that you're kind of the Eruv, it's Nichale Dementary, he gets a personal hana that it's guarded over there, that there's a shimmer over there, it's protected over there, and that is considered to be a personal hana, and for that, that's why it's also to put the Eruv on the kever. The Yitzrich, that's considered a personal hana, a private hana, because at some point later on, if he wants to eat it, he'll be able to eat it. So it's a personal benefit that he'll have it protected over there, and he'll be able to eat his food over there. So therefore, the Rabbanan hold, there is, aside from the kinyan of the Eruv, there is a personal benefit, and you can't put it on a kever because it's also b'ana, and so therefore they say it's not a valid Eruv.